bipartisan about whether you should lose your job. And I've been quiet on that question because I wanted to see what you were going to do today. In my opinion, you do need to be fired. This is a joke. And director, you're in charge. And that's why you need to go.
The shooter has visited the site 2 more times than you have. And he had a drone, and he picked the AGR building. You know what else is dangerous? I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful, and you should be fired immediately. Go back to guard your freedom.
Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle now admits they don't have saved radio communications from J13, the attack on Trump that almost wrecked American elections and American democracy. Somehow, those recordings are not available. They don't exist. They weren't pressing the buttons appropriately on J13. Who knows why they don't have them, but they don't have them. And Kimberly Cheadle, in her testimony today in Congress, was so terrible that something strange happened that we don't see here regularly. We have Jamie Comer and Jamie Raskin agreeing that Cheadle needs to resign. I don't know if I like this all that much, because anything Raskin does is usually for his own self-interest and his own Democratic Party. So if he signs this, I think he knows that Cheadle is so bad and so explosive and so acidic that they need to get rid of her like now. So my question is, what does he know that we don't yet? Here is what they wrote together. On July 13th, the United States Secret Service, under your leadership, Kim, failed to protect Trump from an assassination attempt that took the life of Corey Comprator and seriously injured at least 2 other people. Today, you failed to provide answers at this hearing to basic questions about the stunning operational failure and to reassure the American people that the Secret Service has learned its lessons and begun to correct its systemic blunders and failures. In the middle of a presidential election, the committee and the American people demand serious institutional accountability and transparency that you are not providing. We call on you to resign as director as a first step to allowing new leadership to swiftly address this crisis and to rebuild the trust of a truly concerned Congress and the American people. From Jamie Raskin, who is all day talking about AR-15s, wants Cheadle gone? Why is that? I'm suspicious. I'm skeptical. Cheadle, of course, is a disaster and does need to go and resign, but that's not the end of it. There is criminal culpability here. Maybe they're trying to save her from that by having her exit the stage gracefully. But we were there. The other major headline, of course, this came over from our friend Julie Kelly. She shared this little highlight. Woo, it's a good one. We want to know what was said on the radios. We want to know when the Secret Service communicating about that.
Does the Secret Service routinely record communications between and amongst detail?
Radio communications?
Any communication?
Email communications are captured, as well as text messages, and then depending on the detail, radio communications are recorded.
Does the Secret Service have recorded communications from the July 13th event?
We do not have radio communications from that day.
We do not have radio communications from J13. Isn't that convenient? The most damning evidence is missing. She didn't answer much today. Even AOC wants these questions answered, but here is from the opening line of questioning from Jamie Comer.
Annual budget of
$1 billion for 24.
I believe around 8,000 employees. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Obviously, there were many security failures on the day of the attempted assassination and leading up to that day. Let's start with the building that the shooter used to shoot President Trump from. At any point Saturday, did the Secret Service have an agent on top of that roof?
Sir, I'm sure as you can imagine that we are just 9 days out from this incident.
That's a lot.
There's still an ongoing investigation. So I want to make sure that any information that we're providing to you is factual.
You can't. Okay. Why did the Secret Service not? Can you answer? Wasn't that building within the perimeter that should be secured? We agree with that.
The building was outside of the perimeter on the day of the visit, but again, that is one of the things that during the investigation we want to take a look at and determine whether or not other decisions should have been made.
One of the things that you said, I believe, in an interview, that there wasn't an agent on the roof because it was a sloped roof. Is that normal? And do you fear that
And hot too. We learned it was hot
creates
also.
An opportunity for
Very hot.
future would-be assassins to look for a slanted roof. I mean,
Yeah.
This is a huge question.
Yeah, I mean, my plan is to build a house on a hill, and then I'll never be raided by the Fed.
The Secret Service agent on the roof, and there have been reports that agents were supposed to be on the roof, but it was hot that day and they didn't want to be on the roof. Can you answer any of those questions?
So I appreciate you asking me that question, Chairman. I should have been more clear in my answer when I spoke about where we place personnel in that interview. What I can tell you is that there was a plan in place to provide overwatch, and we are still looking into
Waiting for something here with the
overwatch,
crane.
whether that be through counter snipers or other technology. Prefer to have sterile rooftops.
Did the Secret Service use any drones for surveillance that day?
So again, I'm not going to get into specifics of that day in itself, but there are times during a security plan that the Secret Service does deploy an asset like a drone.
There were reports that the shooter used a drone just
passed to us from the FBI.
How many Secret Service agents were assigned to President Trump on the day of the rally?
Again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the numbers of personnel that we
Why?
had there,
That's why you're here.
but we feel that there was a sufficient number of agents assigned.
There are reports that several agents assigned to the rally on July 13th were temporary agents not normally assigned to President Trump. Is that accurate?
What I can tell you is that the agents that were assigned to former President Trump are Secret Service agents that provide close protection to him, and that was what was actual on that day.
How many temporary agents were there that day?
Quite frequently, sir, during campaign events, the Secret Service utilizes agents from HSI, the Department of Security,
You don't know how many
to supplement
can answer.
our plan.
Had the investigators reconstructed the shooter's precise movements over the past days, weeks, and months?
So
But
again,
we need to have confidence that if the FBI is leading this investigation, that they're leading a credible investigation. There's some of us sitting up here today that don't have a lot of confidence. So I will repeat the question. Have the investigators reconstructed the shooter's precise moment over the past days, weeks, and months?
I understand your question, Chairman, and I share your concerns about wanting to make sure that we have factual information.
That the FBI's crap?
The FBI is conducting a criminal investigation. The Secret Service is conducting an internal investigation. There are a number of OIG investigations, and there is the external investigation.
Last question for me. Before July 13th, had the Trump detail requested additional resources?
What I can tell you is that for the event on July 13th, the details, the assets that were requested for that day were given.
My time has expired. Chair now recognizes his ranking member asking for 5 minutes.
All right, so that was Comer. Now, that was in the morning, and there was a lot also happening in the afternoon. So this was an excerpt from Byron Donalds, who was also asking some specific questions, and it was much of the same. She was pretty good at carrying everything away. She had several talking points. I defer you to the FBI, kind of like Karine does. Talked about ongoing investigation. That's a big one. Bingo on that one. Your sources and methods type of a thing. Didn't really come up a whole lot, but internal policies and stuff like that. I can't comment on numbers. I can't comment on any of this stuff because it's all ongoing. So it was a lot of that. Here's Byron Donalds getting into it.
Mr. Donalds, Florida.
Thank you, Chairman, Director. Real quick, what time was Secret Service aware of the active threat against President Trump?
So the Secret Service was aware that there was an individual who had been identified as suspicious, and that individual
What time?
was attempting to be tracked down.
At what time?
I don't have a specific timeline other than to...
Ron Johnson
Director,
does.
it's been 9 days
I
at the
understand.
local police department.
There are a number of reports of when those times were made.
Was it 5 minutes before the first shot rang out?
No.
Generally speaking, was it 10 minutes before the first shot rang out?
No.
Was it
less-
15 minutes before the first shot rang out?
It was less than that time frame when it was identified as a threat.
How many days before the shooting took place did Secret Service actually do their advance work to secure the facility that the rally was going to be held at?
5 days.
In the 5 days prior, when the security advance team did their work, did they identify the rooftop as a potential threat?
Again, I'm pulling those reports and that information.
It's been 9 days,
That
Madam
continues.
Director. Did they notice a rooftop 150 yards away that was a potential threat? Yes or no?
I am certain that the rooftop was noticed. I am pulling the reports.
What was the security parameters around securing that rooftop? What did they do?
There was overwatch provided for that rooftop.
Did Overwatch
Not
fail?
really.
I
Yeah.
am waiting to hear what the results of the investigation were so that I can identify where the failure was.
Who did you talk to that was on the ground that day that was responsible for Overwatch? What are their names?
I'm not going to provide their names in this setting.
Did you talk to the people that were providing Overwatch that day?
I've talked to the people that conducted the advance on that day and that were working the shift and were the counter snipers on that day.
So you talked to the counter sniper team, you talked to the people who were providing Overwatch that day, and you talked to the advance team, correct?
Yes, sir.
What did they tell you?
We are putting together a comprehensive report so that I can identify exactly where the gaps and the failures.
When the counter sniper team was on the roof and they identified that there was a suspicious activity on the roof in question, what was the chain of command's orders around the person on said roof? Because I'm quite sure somebody saw under your organization, the Secret Service, I'm quite sure somebody saw the shooter on the roof. So what was the communication
The local cops
through the
too.
chain of command to deal with said person?
What I can tell you is that when the individual was identified by the counter sniper, they took one shot and neutralized that individual.
But that was after the shooter already took a shot, is that correct?
That is correct.
So what you're saying now is that the Secret Service did not see the shooter on the roof until after the shooter took a shot?
I do not have all of those details at this time.
If you don't have those details after 9 days, Director, then what you're telling me is that you guys didn't see it. Is that correct?
I am telling you I don't have all the details of the sequence at this time.
Director, it's been 9 days. Either you have the information or you do not. Is that correct?
They saw him.
We are still in the process of conducting interviews and an investigation.
Some of my colleagues have texted me over the last couple days, bipartisan, about whether you should lose your job. And I've been quiet on that question because I wanted to see what you were going to do today. In my opinion, you do need to be fired immediately. And it is because this is gross incompetence.
Yeah, it's not just gross
And the
incompetence.
fact that it's been 9 days, and these are simple questions to answer. I'm quite sure if I asked any one of my kids if they got in trouble and I told them to give me the details, I would get more answers from them than I'm getting from you right now.
Wow.
And that's what's frustrating on a bipartisan basis, on a nonpartisan basis. This is a joke. And director, you're in charge. And that's why you need to go. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Byron Donalds. Well done, sir. And he's not alone. Even AOC is upset about this, which makes me wonder what the hell is going on with the Democrats. I don't know if something happened. They're a little nervous. Joe Biden's not in the race anymore. What's going on? Or they're just trying to save their own skin. They don't want to be connected with an assassination attempt of Trump.
Are happening in about 100 days. So the notion of a report come out in 60 days, not theater. This is not about jockeying. This is about the safety of some of the most highly targeted and valued targets internationally and domestically in the United States of America. So the idea that a report will be finalized in 60 days, let alone prior to any actionable decisions that would be made, is simply not acceptable. It has been 10 days since an assassination attempt on the former president of the United States, regardless of party. There need to be answers.
Interesting take from AOC. Of course, the question is, why does she suddenly want answers on this? Because she wants to get the basic answers and call it a day. Move on to something else. So I want to share this clip from our friend Viva. He said this is hands down the most powerful and relevant exchange of this entire clip. Hearing from Representative Pat Fallone out of the great state of Texas. Here is the representative grilling the director of the Secret Service.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Fallon from Texas.
How did a 20-year-old loner with a week's notice pick the absolute best location to assassinate President Trump when the entire Secret Service missed it? Director Cheadle, in your leadership, your agency got outsmarted and outmaneuvered by a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
How can we have any confidence that you can stop and train professionals from a nefarious nation state?
Those are absolutely questions that we need to have.
I know it's questions, but the fact of the matter is we can't have that confidence. Director, do you have the authority to beef up security of any of your protectees?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So were you also aware there was a credible threat President Trump was facing a heightened security threat to a foreign adversary?
Yes.
So given that there was an increased threat to President Trump's life, was he provided a full security complement akin to what a sitting U.S. president would receive?
No.
He was provided a full complement of security based on the threat assessment that we had.
That's not my
At the
question.
venue.
My question is, if he'd been the sitting president, he had the same security he got on July 13th, it would have been beefed up.
There is a difference between the
No,
sitting
he didn't. So
president
your answer is he didn't.
and continuity of government and the
So
responsibility.
he did not. Okay, there wasn't a full CAT team on site. There wasn't counter surveillance teams on site. But this is the thing. You just said you had the ability to beef up the security. You knew about the threat, and you didn't. And that's as telling as this is showing. We have satellite images from the public fair. Have you visited the site?
No, I have not.
9 days and you're not visiting the site. You should have been there that night. That evening, did you talk to the team, the heroes that surrounded the president? Did you call them that night?
They were still operational work.
So that's an answer to no. Just call them the next day.
President. Yes, I spoke with them.
Call them the very next day, not the day of. It was 72 hours after.
I don't know the timeline, but I spoke with
Okay,
them
because you're under oath.
immediately.
I think it was 72 hours after you went 3 days. But it's immediately clear that there are a number of structures that need to be secure. Of these, Director, other than the first, immediate 4, what's the most dangerous site that should have been secured? Because security 101, you got to mitigate the high ground.
Yes.
Do you know what the next most dangerous site? What was the closest structure to the president, other than the 4 immediate ones that you had your counter sniper teams on?
There are a number of structures around that event site.
You know who the shooter did? The shooter has visited the site 2 more times than you have, and he had a drone, and he picked the
Brutal.
AGR building. So you said, do you remember in an ABC interview you did that you didn't have people on the roof of the AGR building because you were worried about safety because of the slope?
I recall that.
It's about as flat as you can get without it being completely flat. And you're saying that there was a danger, safety concern there. But the problem is, Director, you put your counter snipers on a 312 roof, which is steeper than the 112. By the way, the 112 is ADA compliant. You can build a ramp for a wheelchair on a 112 roof. So these are nothing but aesthetic excuses.
Yeah,
They
lies. They're lies. She knows they should have had people on there. She's just trying to throw chum in the water to mess everything
A
up.
bunch of cow dung. All the law enforcement I've spoken with for the last 9 days are amazed that the AGR rooftop was not secure. You want to know why?
Everybody.
It's dangerous. I have never had any long gun training in my life. I own an AR-15, and last time I shot it one time my whole life, 6 years ago. That is until Saturday, where we recreated the events in Savoy, Texas. We recreated what happened in Baltimore. I was lying prone on a sloped roof at 130 yards at 6:30 at night, and I knew that he had a scope. I didn't know what kind, red dot, magnified. So I shot 8 rounds from both. You know what the result was?
Hit it.
15 out of 16 kill shots.
Yeah,
One of this would have hit the president's ear. That's a 94% success rate.
Yeah.
And that shooter was a better shot than me.
It was a
It is
miracle.
a miracle President if
Yes.
Trump wasn't killed. Compared Torre's life is over because that damn shooter made it on the roof. And it wasn't the roof that was dangerous, it was the nut job on top of the roof. You know what else is dangerous? I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful, and you should be fired immediately. Go back to Garden Doritos. Kevin, you're back. Yeah!
Go back and guard Doritos there, Kim. You need to go. So, interesting clip there. She obviously, I think, is eating those words. This sloped roof is becoming a meme at this point. And even guys like Ro Khanna are saying it's time for Cheadle to go. This was a good exchange. And it's interesting when all the Democrats were saying she needs to go. Why is that?
You know what Stuart Knight did when we was in charge at the time of the Secret Service? You know what he did afterwards?
He remained on duty.
He resigned. He resigned. And Stuart Knight was not a Democratic appointee or Republican appointee. Look, I'm not questioning your judgment, and I just don't think this is partisan. If you have an assassination attempt on a former president or a candidate, you need to resign. That's what Stuart Knight did. He was a Republican appointee, and he took responsibility. And I think you need to reflect. This is not a question of you. It's a question of the American people. You cannot go leading a Secret Service agency when there is an assassination attempt on a presidential candidate.
Yeah, it's insane.
I would say that about anyone who is running. And so I guess my question to you is, what's the difference between your position and what Stuart Knight did?
What I will tell you, sir, is that I am
He had
dedicated
integrity.
to finding the answers
He had integrity.
to
I
what
know.
happened. And like every Secret Service agent, we don't shirk our responsibilities. I will remain on and be responsible to the agency, to this committee, to the former president, and to the American public.
But is it?
Yeah, I'm going to stay on, Ro, and you better be very careful, okay, or else I'm going to be in charge of your security, too. We're going to secure your next event as well. So she's not going to go anywhere, I don't think. I think she'll stick around. So we're going to be here continuing to cover this, my friends. Thank you for subscribing wherever it is you're watching this. Thanks for joining us. We go live 5 days a week here. We're going to be covering this and much more. The documents are flying here. I have record requests coming out of our earballs here. So we're going to be very excited to go through those with you, and we'd love it if you joined us as we did. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for inviting someone you know or love to come over here and check out our channel, and we'll see you back here on the next one.
That's nuts. Let's try this first.
Last location.
I'm sorry, 7-Eleven. Start that way to that word first as well. 7-Eleven. In 720, 721, and 7-Eleven, there is a premise for this location. Check the premise, 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven, you passed the premise, 7-Eleven.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 720. And 720.
Yeah, 521 David.
521. Eight 830, 621.
It's an open warrant, though.
Dispatch.
1022, go ahead.
Cancel all the crews going to the airport.
Triana.
830,
830, cancel.
621. And 620.
Item.
Myself and 7-5 will be investigating that today.
Copy.
511, that's the other crew.
510, you're right at 55.